Hey y'all, if you are a Patreon supporter, you can get the live video of this episode, including all the goofy preamble before the show starts. If you aren't a supporter and you want to see this video, you can become one at patreon.com/femfreak.
Michael's here.
What? How?
She guessed this is about to go. The Federation has no authority here. I didn't think she'd risk it. She's gonna try to buy the Isolinium out from under us.
I doubt she'll have enough to get a sandwich, seeing how that's going.
She always finds a way. So if you can manage to help find the cheaters ASAP, I'd appreciate that.
Does it look like I'm having fun here?
Hello and welcome to the Feminist Frequency Star Trek podcast. I'm Anita Sarkeesian, and this week we're talking about Star Trek Discovery, Season 4, Episodes 8 and 9. Returning guests, the duo, the team, the tag team, I got nothing, is Ali Mattu, a real-life psychologist who fell in love with psychology because of Star Trek and now shares everything he knows on YouTube. Hi.
Hi, Nia. I am so psyched, no pun intended, for this reunion. I miss you all.
And the reunion is with BOBAK FERDOWSI, NASA engineer that doesn't understand why there aren't more engineers. And then I stopped writing the bio because we were going to write it together. I think that it was more engineers on Star Trek.
I mean, I feel like there's not enough engineers. There used to be.
Just like in general?
But now well, I mean, like Stamets isn't much of an engineer. He's a scientist, right?
He's a mushroom expert, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a mycologist.
I feel like he's a whatever the show needs, sciencey wyancy in the moment. You know, I think he's that guy. I would just like all of our listeners to know that it is currently 9:30 p.m. It is about, 30 minutes away from my bedtime. We are all extremely loopy right now. So this is going to be like Star Trek After Hours, where it probably won't be very coherent.
I love it.
I think Discovery is going to make more sense right now at this hour of the day.
We just spent about 20 minutes trying to make our setups look good for each other. So for no reason.
For an audio podcast.
That's what we've got going on.
For an audio podcast.
Which, maybe the patrons will get this video because we worked so hard to make it look delightful. All right. Okay. So we just had Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episodes 1 through 7. And then we had a big ass break, and now we're back. And I think there's like 5 or 6 more episodes left. So we're like, more than halfway through this season. Where are you landing on Season 4? How are you all feeling so far?
I just watched the whole thing. I mean, to get ready for this. So I thought it was a slow start. I mean, I really struggled to figure out where the season was going. But the last couple episodes, I thought were actually more exciting. At least there's a little bit more on the line, so that's kind of fun.
All right.
I don't even remember. Anita,
I don't remember the show at all.
I remember when you emailed us and you said, "Hey, there's going to be a delay." I remember being so frustrated because I was so into it. I was really enjoying.
Clearly not.
Yeah. I mean, I was really enjoying having Star Trek Discovery on my Wednesday nights to look forward to, and having this just like this burst of Star Trek in the middle of the week. There's a lot I remember liking about this season, but there's not a lot I remember. So I remember it being very cinematic and really loving that. I remember the season premiere was just like gorgeous and beautiful, and it looked like it was filmed like a movie. I love the new uniforms. The gray colors at the end of last season were a little kind of bland, and I love the pop of color. There's been a ton of mental health. My goodness,
dude! I was so excited for you to come on because that's in my notes of like, isn't it amazing?
It is.
Do you love it? I love it.
I love it. I love it.
Great.
I love it so much. One of the things that I have been so frustrated by is like how we've got like such advanced medical technology. We've got dermal regenerators that just heal away your cuts and stuff like that. And we've got we can rebuild your backbones. But for most of Star Trek, therapy has been stuck in Freudian psychoanalysis. And then there's one episode where Counselor Troy introduces plexing, which is this tapping technique behind your ear, which seems so stupid to me. So we've seen such a primitive form of mental health support and care. And you can argue that we've seen good friendships and support in other ways, but traditional mental health is so lagged behind. And Star Trek Discovery's actually made these big leaps forward, starting with Admiral Cornwall. I think it's Cornwall or Cornwell. I'm not sure. But audience, let us know. She was a psychologist who became an admiral in season 2 of Discovery. Love that. And here,
I fucking remember season 2 of Discovery.
Right now, Anita, I remember
Apparently
season 2
you remember that.
and not anything else this season. But seeing Culber being such a great source of support in this show. I mean, look, this crew has lost everything. Their connection with their homes, with their families, they're in a different world. So there's stuff to deal with here, and they're kind of dealing with it. So I love that. But I also love how the Doctor here is experiencing some compassion fatigue, some vicarious trauma. He's going through some stuff. That's something every mental health professional right now is going through, having lived through COVID themselves and supporting other people who are going through this. So I love that. And then the last thing I'll say, because I could go on and on about this, but the last thing I'll say is Discovery is showing us one of the most important mental health skills out there across all conditions, which is social support. Being there for someone else in the way that they want to get support has been shown to be one of the most critical skills any of us can really utilize to help ourselves through tough times. And they're doing that. They're doing it consistently, week after week, in different ways. I love it. I could go on, but I'm going to stop and I'm going to sip some of my tea.
Yeah. It's something that I've noticed, and I've been so delighted by. But now that you're talking about the technology, I remember there's this scholarly academic that does a lot of work around Francesca Coppa, who does a lot of work around pop culture and whatever. She's brilliant. She's wonderful. I remember years and years ago, she did a talk, and she played a clip from the oh my God, y'all. The bad movies, the Abrams movies. And it was the beginning is the woman going into birth and blah, blah, blah. And she's screaming and it's traditional child labor. And she just why can't we beam the baby out? I don't understand. Why would we still be giving birth? And I think it's a similar, which was mind blowing to me at the time because it didn't occur to me to think of things differently like that. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a similar thing to what you're talking about, where it would be interesting to watch them tackle mental health that is more, I don't know, chemical, right? Or things that are about that people might take drugs or some kind of, that might take drugs to be able to deal with, whether it's anxiety meds or any kind of sort of disorders around that sort of thing. I don't know if disorder is the right word. But is there advancements that could be done in this universe to model that, the same thing you would do with healing a wound?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that
I think that'd be cool.
This is kind of stuff NASA's already working on. Not that this is my territory when it comes to today's podcast, but simple things like proximity sensors on crew members that indicate if one person on the crew is self-isolating more than others. Can we tap into loneliness and depression before it starts impacting someone so that the crew and the mission are not compromised? There's a lot of great ways in which you can use technology to apply psychological science in a way to capture problems before they really start playing out in big ways. And Star Trek's really lagged behind this. I think it's done better than something like Star Wars. If you watch Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, the whole movie I think is an argument for good prenatal care. How the heck did they not know this this person had twins and like got no medical care, and then she dies of a broken heart. Like, science fiction, come on. Like, let's have better healthcare. Like, you have lightsabers, you have transporters. We can beam some babies out.
Give us the fantasy of healthcare.
Yes.
Of actual, we don't have it. So let's just imagine, at least in our fiction, having health insurance. And not health insurance, but like adequate healthcare.
Yes.
All right, let's get into these 2 episodes. So, again, might I remind everyone that it's late and I didn't prepare. So the descriptions and the synopsis are really aces right now. Episode 8, All In. Book and Tarka go rogue and end up at a planet looking for isolinium to power their destruction device. Michael and Owu show up and they play space poker together. Yeah, that's kind of what happened, right?
Yeah.
All right. Episode 9, Rubicon. Michael goes after Book and Tarka. She finds them. They flirt with torpedoes. And then it was all for naught anyways. How's that for a summary? Okay. It's good.
I love it.
Yeah, great.
It's a job
all right. As I have been doing with this podcast, I end up watching both of these episodes like together. And so they're kind of mushed in my brain. But like, let's try and start with 8. Book and Tarka go like so we end 7 with like there's this tension between Michael and Booker and like they go off and it's fucking heartbreaking. And I think the thing I'll say about both of these episodes is the tension between them is so heartbreaking because I've been rooting for them. I think they're wonderful together. Their relationship is delightful. And I really liked how they added these little bits of like levity of like, I know you, like we know each other and we are like kind of in sync so much that I'm going to follow you to the ends of the earth and I'm going to know where you're going. Like that romance, like the love story part of that I thought was really sweet and played out in a way that was both very tender and very heartbreaking.
I'm not quite as sold on that relationship, but I get where it's coming from.
I mean, it's better than fucking Tyler. Do you remember him? What was his name? Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
Klingon Tyler?
I hated him.
Oh,
so
yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, he was terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I'll go a different direction. So,
I mean, what I really love that poker game. They really get each other. You see that they've been through stuff. Like I buy their relationship definitely far more than Tyler. I really enjoy all the scenes of them together, and it's really it is heartbreaking to see them on these different sides. Yeah.
I gotta say, I kind of might be getting this energy from you, but like from both of you a little bit, but like. I think like the first season I really hated. Like the first 2 seasons mostly I really hated. It wasn't until season 3 that I was like, oh, I feel like they're finding their footing. And in season 4, like there are things that I really like about it, but I'm not excited. Like these 2 episodes, like I wasn't really excited by them, And so like I'm kind of like, yeah, let's find something to talk about, but they're not really riveting me in the way that I think some of the other episodes did, or the way that like some parts of season 3, because this one feels a lot like, and I've said this before on the podcast, that it feels a lot like the same overall structure as season 3, right? It's there's a big thing and a mystery and oh my God, somebody's causing this horrible thing and whatever. So they are doing it differently. There is room for like, who are these people? Who are these aliens? What's going to happen here? Like, Prime Directive-y kind of First Contact stuff. But I'm also like, it's like it's kind of like with the Fast and the Furious, where it's like, well, you got to go to space now because what the fuck else are you gonna do? Like this feels kind of like that.
I mean, one thing, these 2 episodes are really different than the previous 7, though, right? Each of the previous 7 sort of hit on an emotional theme as well, right? Much more strongly, like us, what does identity mean? What does it mean to be corporeal? What does it mean to be an intelligent spacecraft? So it is a shift, and I think it's a shift in the direction of the overarching plot of the season, which is the DMA anomaly and the resolution of what is it, that big picture. So I think that the poker one, I always struggle just because I'm like, look, just making like space versions of things kind of feels lazy. Like, oh, space bar and space poker, and you're like, oh, okay. I don't know. Like, I feel like there's got to be more interesting things out there than space poker.
It feels a little filler.
Dabo. We have existing Star Trek unique games that have been played. Like Dabo is one from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I know, Anita, you haven't seen DS9.
It's fine. I know what you're talking.
I know.
It's better than 3D chess. I mean, let's all agree.
But what they could have done is they could have taken that game and made it like, the future iteration, like, because it's 900 years in the future. How would this game have evolved or not? Yeah. Right?
Oh,
because it's not like we don't have games that are centuries old that are still kind of what they were.
Totally. Anita, I definitely I agree. The last two. I feel like I say this every time. You're kind enough to invite me back, but I always try to aim to be on one of the ending podcasts so that there's more to say. And then I always find my way onto these like episodes that are like not standalones and are kind of carrying the plot forward, but there's not a lot of meat in these episodes, and it's really frustrating, and it's happened again. There's not a lot to say, but
I give you the choice of which episode. I give them a list and they get to pick them.
And I constantly pick the wrong one. But I have some things to say. I agree. The space poker, although the cards were quite beautiful, the way they brought them together, and they were referencing aliens there from Star Trek Beyond, and I think the original series, and I think there was a Cardassian or something that they were referencing. That's cool. One problem I had with that episode, this really, speaking of DS9, angered me. It's the first time we're seeing a changeling, one of these shape-shifting aliens. Okay, here we go. I know you.
I was very excited. I can't wait.
So I was excited, right? That this is the first time we're seeing an alien that we haven't seen since Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And so, Anita, the changeling aliens, are you familiar with them at all? And their backstory? A little bit. Okay, so the long story short, they were tormented, hunted, killed, bullied by what they refer to as solids, as organic life that can't change its form. People saw them as really untrustworthy. There was a lot of xenophobia towards these changelings. And so they're sort of the main story behind the Dominion and the war that breaks out, that they created all these genetic life forms that wouldn't betray them to kind of protect themselves. And so they're the bad guys of Deep Space Nine, but you also get where they're coming from. Anyways, this is the first time we're seeing them since Deep Space Nine. It's 100 years into the future. And the first time we see a changeling, it's the same trope. It's an untrustworthy criminal changeling. And that was kind of disappointing to me. I'm sure there's other changelings out there, but this is the first time we're seeing a changeling. And I compare that to the Federation president that has some Cardassian ancestry, so which is really cool that the president of the Federation has ancestry of a species that was considered to be an enemy of the Federation. Love it. But did you have to make the changeling the same trope that they were persecuted for? That annoyed me.
Yeah, I didn't know any of that backstory, actually. Because I didn't watch Deep Space Nine. But what's funny about that is when they started doing the episode kind of sucked, let's be honest. And I feel like our listeners are gonna be like, but you liked the other ones, and I was like, oh yeah, I did. Like, I loved all the shit around Zora becoming sentient and so the conversation about that. I feel like this season had a bunch of those like Star Trek-y moments. Yes. And I'm just like, feelings and diplomacy and the difficulties of engaging with other people. So I just want to call myself out. But this episode it wasn't bad. I didn't hate it or anything. I just, it was a little cheesy to me. But that said, is that changeling character, I remember when they were going to find whoever the, the thief or Yeah, they're looking for cheaters. That's what they called them. The eye signaling, they're like, oh, they're signaling with their eyes, and I was like, is that racist? Like I was like, is that just how how this like species is? I remember feeling a little bit off about like that, and I don't know, like it might be related to this larger feeling of like, why are the changelings the ones that are being like criminalized in this context? And it's like, it's almost as you describe it, it's almost like saying like women use their sexuality to like trick their way into such and such whatever, right?
Or I mean, a lot of the transphobia that we've seen. Like there's so many layers. That's why I think the changeling story is so beautiful. But here I thought it was done in such a lazy way that just doesn't work after the episode before. I mean, the episode before was one of those Hilton Conference Center, get everyone together, let's talk about our problems, things that I just like eat up. That was always my favorite part of Next Generation. Like, oh yeah, a bunch of people in the room talking out their problems. I am here for this. And then this was the next episode, and I was like, ugh, okay.
Yeah. Okay, another thing here is Owosukun's name is Joanne. Okay, so when she goes into the ring and like Michael's doing her weird like Joanne, oh wow, Owosukun, and you're like, what the fuck is happening? And her name's Joanne. That's her. Owosukun was her last name. Do we know this?
I don't.
Did they decide her name was Joanne in this episode? Who the fuck wrote that? Why? What? Come on.
That's got to be in the show Bible, right?
It's got to be, right?
Yeah.
But it's the first time I remember hearing her first name. And
Same.
also I feel like the show did another thing where they're like, we didn't get any backstory on the other bridge characters. Like we still don't really know anything about any of them. And I was like, cool, she's going on an away mission with Michael and like there's going to be bonding and whatever. And all we know is that she's a good fighter. Like that's not character development,
It's no shirtless Sulu for sure.
I mean, it was awesome to watch. Don't get me wrong, but like it's not. Yeah.
That is a weird thing about Discovery that we don't really get to know the. I don't even know if they're senior staff, but the peeps on the bridge. They don't really have like mission briefings. They don't have the traditional stuff that shows you more of who these characters are. You get a lot of looks. Like this bridge crew. They've got the looks down, like the dramatic look, the subtly like sexual look, the are we gonna make this look, the oh we got this look. They got those down.
Which makes you think that we know them.
Yeah.
But we don't.
Yeah, we don't.
Like we don't.
Yeah.
We don't like what do you know about Detmer? Do you even know which one she is?
Yes.
Like I just yeah, she's the pilot, right?
The hair on one side.
That's it. But that's it. She's the hair one. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, some things I thought were cute in this episode was when Hugh was cleaning because he's so fucking stressed out.
Oh yeah.
And just their, I think their relation. Well, I don't think the two of them have the greatest chemistry. I still like their relationship and the existence of their relationship. And so the whole conversation around like it is totally unreasonable to bear the responsibility for everyone's well-being and to take responsibility for all of that. Like, even though he, to internalize that, I really like and you brought this up, Ali, before of like the burden on caregivers and the burden on therapists. And like, this isn't a Voyager situation, but he is kind of singularly responsible and like understands in a way that someone else might not. So I thought that was really nice to show him like kind of crawling up the walls a little bit here.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of chemistry, but they have a lot of affection, which I buy. Like I don't buy the chemistry. I completely buy the affection and the compassion and care for one another. That I think has been solid, and I do enjoy seeing them be with each other and support each other.
Yeah. Okay, another thing I liked was I love when they give Sonequa Martin Green like stuff to do other than be like compassionate. She's really good at being compassionate. You're just like, oh yeah. But like when she gets to play a little, it's always fun. And so when they are playing poker and she's like, how are things going in the intimidation industry? And just like being really over the top. And then she just like, just a little one, just a baby bet. You're like, it's just fucking hilarious. And I would love like season, because I love Book and Michael. I would love season 5 to be like, what were they called? Glowworm and Right Hook. Like just they're like in between years, right? Where they were like the outlaw years. I think that, or just a throwback episode even of just the two of them, like, you know, doing it in space and like being like Bonnie and Clyde. Like, that'd be fucking dope. I'm sure that fan fiction exists. I just need to go.
Oh, there's probably so much
fan
of it.
fiction. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, like they do this thing and whatever, and they try to. It's fine. Okay. So we go into episode 9.
Oh, can I say?
Oh, yeah.
Before we move on, who I'm forgetting the name of the actor who's playing the dude that wants to get back to his own timeline or his own universe.
Tarka.
Yeah, that actor. He is so good at playing like punchable characters. Like, I just started watching The Expanse, and
is he in The Expanse?
He's in the first few seasons of Expanse, and also plays a very similar punchable character. He's so good in that role of it's a very specific niche of thinking he's on your side but has ulterior motives, and you just want to punch him. Like this is your go-to guy. So wonderful job, person who's doing that.
Yeah. So okay, about Tarka, I forgot about his whole "I want to go see my lover in another universe" or whatever alternate time, whatever. I don't know. It's a folding the time and space, whatever.
It's wibbly wobbly.
Yeah, I forgot about that, and I feel like that is that just me? Is there any? Are we feeling feelings for him about wanting to go meet his lover in another time? Okay, so they're just not doing a great job at, I don't know. I don't think they're doing a good enough job to get us to like feel that tension that I think would be more dramatic in this moment.
That's been a challenge. Even right, it was the challenge of the first Star Trek movie too, right? With Nero, and you're like, are you supposed to sympathize with the character who's trying to go back to his family? Or it's never worked well for Star Trek. I feel like when they try that, they have a reason for it. It was the Generations as well, right? The same thing with the getting back to the Nexus. Kind of, it's a tough one to really be like, oh, I totally get where you're coming from. You just got to get back to your family, I guess, or loved ones.
Well, and yeah, and also like it's like it's been 10. He's like, it's been 10 years, and I lost my lover, and I like have been working to get back. I don't know. I'm just like, all right, if everyone lost people, man, chill out. I don't know. Is that like fucking?
Well, I mean, that's what.
I mean, Book lost his entire fucking planet.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, and that's why the episode before last, which is what I'm going to do, Anita, I'm going to talk about the episode I wish I was on to discuss. What was so amazing about that episode is like, here is this quadrant, or the alpha and beta quadrant, or gamma. Like everyone's here. I think there's delta quadrant. The whole galaxy is in this Hilton Conference Center. And what's cool is they've all gone through the being disconnected from each other in such a deep way. And it's what some of us may have experienced, and what some of us are waiting to experience are these reconnections that we haven't been able to have because of COVID. And it's kind of moving to see these people come together and to know all the hard work that kind of went into it. And I loved that. And then here's this Tarka dude who kind of appears out of nowhere. We don't really have any connection to him, his universe, his timeline. And I don't really feel much for him. And I think one of the dirty secrets of Star Trek is Star Trek doesn't do villains well. It doesn't. Yeah, I know. We've got Khan. Great. Like, Can you name two others?
Borg is a pretty good villain.
Who's a good villain?
The Borg is a pretty good villain.
But they're like a collective species.
Yes. Cardassians, Borg, sure. Those have worked well, but yeah.
So you've got Dukat, who was really developed over like seasons and seasons. But you don't have a ton of good villains. What Star Trek really does well is like these ideas and these like antagonist forces that are maybe larger forces, but not really specific individuals. And whenever Star Trek really tries hard to do these, I don't know, it kind of ends up failing like often, I find.
Well, hold on, let me clarify. So are you saying that they fail at doing individual villains, or they fail at doing larger systemic like systems that are harmful?
I think they fail more often doing like singular specific villains. I think systems are done in a more interesting way with Star Trek. Like I was talking about changelings before, like that whole idea and the species, super interesting. The Borg, super interesting. I think one exception we do have is Dukat and the Cardassians. Like they are really well done, but I don't think Star Trek Voyager really had many compelling villains. I'd say the same thing about most of the series.
And if I remember, like Voyager was a lot of random, like it was just they just kept like encountering people who were a little bit hostile, you know. And also because Star Trek is so monoculture and historically has been really bad about monoculture. But I think I like. Okay.
That was a good, interesting point, though. I mean, it's interesting because we're saying the Borg and the Cardassians. Those actually represent sort of the cultural clashes, though, as well. Klingons, Romulans, right? I mean, they're all kind of cultural clashes, which is, I agree with you that, you know, the monoculture, but it's kind of an interesting point that the best enemies, still, I don't know if you want to call them villains, right, are the ones that come from an opposing viewpoint of the world.
And I think that there is something really interesting to like cultural clash, right? Because that is such a human experience of trying to engage with people who have just a totally different upbringing or different experience from you. But, you know, I wish it was done less monoculturally and less, you know, and then is there a way that you find common ground? Like, that's kind of why I think Navarre is interesting, right? Where that like, I'm glad we've gotten a little bit of insight into that. I hope we can get a little bit more because, you know, you are dealing with the Vulcans and the Romulans and you're like, yes, they are from the same people. And like, what does that mean in the future coming together? Speaking of Navarre, Saru and Trina's fucking romance is adorable. But I was like, oh, they're totally banging. And then this episode, Saru was like all worried about taking, like, they haven't gotten, of all this time, they haven't gotten past this.
They're just meditating.
And she's like, do you want to go for a walk?
They're meditating a
man.
It's the dry humping of their cultures.
Oh, and it was so, and speaking of modeling behavior, having Saru go to Hugh and be like, can I talk to you about something vulnerable? It was so
super
sweet.
It was super adorable.
And for Hugh to just be like, go get it, buddy. They have these little moments that kind of pop out of nowhere that they just like squeeze into this otherwise like everything is ending story, which, you know, whatever. So I thought that was sweet.
I thought that was super relatable and super sweet.
Yeah.
And just so nice to see, you know, like we're at this point in the show where we know our principals really well. We might not know most of the bridge crew, but we know Saru, we know Michael, and to see them exploring their relationships more, or at least sexuality to some degree, and letting these characters be interested in other characters. I love that. You know, that's something that is really, really rewarding. And I'm thinking about other times where we've seen romances start to happen on Star Trek series. It seems like season 3, 4, or 5 is kind of when that stuff starts to happen, and it's nice. It's nice to see more fully fleshed out characters. I was about to say more human characters, but they're not.
Ooh.
caught myself for it.
Yeah, we don't know what Kelpian romance normally looks like, right? So I guess, yeah.
I'm excited. Yeah, a little kinky over there. We had a guest on this season, but previous episodes. Her name is Jessie Gender. She's a YouTuber, and she made a dope series about sex and Star Trek. Like, it's like 45 minutes. I watched it in like 5 increment chunks. But it's really good. It was really good and goes through the history of like, sex and romance on Star Trek, and also oh my god, what's the creator's name?
Gene Roddenberry,
and how all of his stuff, which is very complicated. So highly recommend that if you're interested in this.
I need to watch that like now.
Yeah, it's really good. I thought there was something really sweet about Saru. He brings up Su'Kal. Like, they keep bringing up characters that at least are acknowledging that we're not seeing these characters. So they bring up Su'Kal, they bring up Gray, and that sort of thing. But so around Su'Kal, like Su'Kal being worried about the anomaly and Saru doesn't know how to comfort him through that. I thought there was something really sweet about like individual feelings don't matter, but they always matter, right? Like, at least a little nod to like, it's the humanity, you know what I mean, though. They're like,
the collective.
Yeah, like it's individuals that make up the collective.
But not the Borg kind.
I mean, unless you're into that.
Unless you're into that.
I feel like once you become Borg, you're into it.
You have to be.
So the majority of episode 9 is this like standoff. Michael figures out where Book and Tarka go. They're building this thing. I
have this frustration because I don't understand why there's only like 2 solutions presented. I've never been in a room where we're making a difficult decision and you're like, 2 choices, A or B. Like, it just very rarely in something this complex that it boils down to basically 2, like I bomb it or I contact it, right? And no like, oh well more data, no technical, no nothing. It's just like got 2. And I think that kind of makes it difficult when it's something this massive and complex, right? You think about
that's a very good point.
Super good
every
point.
End of the world movie, right? There's like, oh, what if we do this? What if we do that? What if we do all these things?
Well, and I feel like your point stands in terms of like these big power structures that have to make, and institutions that have to make a choice, versus individuals acting on impulse. And so if it was just 2 people who are like, it's got to be this or that, then that kind of makes more sense. But the fact that, Michael is kind of representing all of the thinking behind all of the Federation at this point, and not even just the Federation, like everyone who also isn't in the Federation.
Do we have a name for that room? You have a name for that Hilton Conference room? Yeah.
Yes.
Like, what's the collective called there? What's that group of people called?
I don't know.
All the peeps.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just the Federation and the people the Federation wants to be in the Federation. Yeah, I did get a little bit emotional in this one. Because I do think that the Book and the Michael thing is really tough, and like Michael having to like potentially kill her partner is huge. And I think that they like, I got emotional like watching that and thinking about like, could you imagine being in that situation of like all of humanity versus the person I love? Like that, it's the train car.
Trolley dilemma.
Trolley yes. Problem. Thank you. It's a trolley problem, but it's an
interesting point because I feel like this is the first time there were real stakes this season. I mean, all the other episodes very informative and growing, but you kind of knew where they were going. It wasn't like Gray was not going to come back, right? Like, I mean, it was like, okay, low stakes. But this was the first time where you're like, they really could have to, confront each other or end up, destroying this thing or doing whatever, right? But that you were really faced with an actual consequence. I felt like this season.
Yeah, I think
enjoyed.
The only other time I felt real intense stakes was with Zora, the episode with Zora v. Stamets, and the question of Zora's self-awareness and consciousness. I did feel the stakes here. I think this episode has a lot to say about trust. There are, with both Michael and Book, there are forces around them that are really questioning their trust and questioning whether they're going to be able to make this, and questioning whether they can trust Michael and they can trust Book. I thought that was really cool and interesting. This is leading us into this direction of questions about power and of those who have power and those who do not, and what's the best way to address this. And I'm not sure, this is the problem with talking about episodes like this, like that arc hasn't been resolved yet, so I don't know what direction they're going in. Like, are they giving the message of when you have great power like this, the way you respond is through action? Or are they saying when there is this great powerful force, do you respond with diplomacy? Do you respond with communication and empathy and trying to understand? I agree that binary is a false binary here, and you probably actually need a combination of both there. And I think this story could have a lot to say about civil rights movements in our past and how do you fight oppressive systems. But I don't know where it's going, and I don't know how to form an opinion about it because it's so unresolved right now.
Why did you pick this episode? I don't understand.
I gave you all the option.
I didn't know I should have been on the last episode to talk about
Next time
Zora.
you watch an episode you love, you should be like, bounce someone off for me.
Yes.
I think that this is actually a really interesting point because, especially in American politics, right, where the show is being made, is very binary, right? We look at historical conflict and we look at two sides, right? We look at when we look at the civil rights movement, it's often reduced to whether you were, believed in Malcolm X or you believed in Martin Luther King, when that wasn't what was actually happening, or the complicated, like it was way more complicated than that. And we do that today with like Republican, Democrat, right? Like those are the distinctions. And if you live anywhere else, it's usually not that reductive. Like I grew up in Canada. We have a parliamentary system. Yes, there are two parties that are bigger than the others, but there is still a larger swath of perspectives that are being presented on a national stage, where here you pick green, red or blue or whatever. What are the, you pick your sides, and that's it. And I think it's a really good point of how like that is how we think about politics in America and how reductive that is, because it's not actually how problem solving happens, right? That's not actually like there's so many bigger boundary or so many bigger options and spaces around
it's interesting because
topics.
If you restructure that same episode and you put was it boronite? I don't remember whatever chemical
it was
thing.
That sounds right.
Isolinium. Oh, boromite.
Boromite? Yeah. Sure.
Boromite.
So the isolinium was combined with the boromite?
No. The isolinium is what they needed to power the device. The boromite is what the DMA is mining from planets.
Got it. By the way, I hate DMA because I always want to say DNA. It's super. Whoever named that.
I think DMA, but I think direct memory access because that's what I think about when I think of computers. So. But if you structure that and you put that earlier, right, the whole conversation in that Hilton conference room is about, do we act sooner? Do we act later? Do we do two parallel paths, right? Like, how do we make that decision? It's a much more rich tapestry for them to actually have a dialogue. And I agree with you. I love the conference room, like hash it out, kind of thing that represents, again, the variety of perspectives that a room like that would have in reality. So it's so interesting because they just come up with that like as we can figure it out as we're right in the middle of the crisis, that this is actually what they're doing. And okay, now that we presented this third option, by the way, which we never told you about until this last minute.
Right.
But they just figured it out. Right. It was very cute when Zora was like, at some point says to, it was in episode 8, Zora says to Stamets that she'll do the tedious task because he's not worthy. Like his time is worth more or whatever. And I was like, I love you, Zora. You're the best.
Zora's the best.
Zora's the best. The end of this episode frustrated me. One, it was adorable where they're like, the ships and they're staring at each other through the viewfinders, and you're just like, oh. But as you watch Book walk forward and make the compromise, you know that Tarka's gonna do the thing anyways. And so it was just that kind of like really obvious, like this is about to go down anyways, felt frustrating to me. You know, like I was like, do it different, stage it differently. Don't show us that that's where they're positioned, or do something differently, because you knew it had to happen, because then what?
Tarka's gonna Tarka.
And what would have been more interesting, I think, potentially, is if they had to actually deal with first contact. Not like, you know, like if now it's going to be like an aggressive thing that's going to be complicated and bring up all of these different problems and what have you. But it would have been more interesting to me to watch them try to do first contact without being antagonistic, without having that aggression.
Oh, you don't,
right?
I actually think it's, you just presented, I never had considered it until you said it, but like, there's almost a counterpoint, right? Which is, we've never seen the Federation have to come from behind truly in reaching out and compromise and diplomacy.
Yes.
Like, there's never been a point at which the Federation's the bad guy and is coming, not truly, right? Not with the stakes this high, I guess. So it's kind of an interesting.
Yes, but also the Federation isn't the bad guy, right? It was just like one person that did a thing. So
but the other people don't know that.
But it doesn't matter. They don't know that. Yeah. So I guess maybe that is interesting, but
could be. I mean, we don't know where they're going to go because Ali
really
picked the wrong episode, and so here I am because I was like, I just want to be on the episode with Ali. So
So
I think you actually wrote that like here.
I literally wrote that in my reply. I was like, I just
that was the highlight of my day because I felt my heart was so warm.
Well, despite us having a boring episode, at least we all look good. Although I don't know why I look orange, but that's okay. I'm cosplaying an orange alien.
I think that is a fascinating direction this whole season could go. Is not only are the Federation less powerful, but so is everyone in that Hilton conference room or Hilton Conference Center. And I don't want to downplay the size of that room. It was quite large. You can host any event. All of these species are quite inferior when it comes to the technology that compared to the DMA. We haven't even seen their weapons yet. So who is this species? What are their, will they, so will they just see us as insects? Like, this is the thing about First Contact. First Contact on our own planet has been plagued with disaster every time it's happened because a certain group of humans doesn't see that other group of humans as equals, as worthy of respect and humanity and all of that. So what's going to happen when whoever made this sees us? It's clear that our most banned, bad, intense, horrible weapon did nothing to their technology. It was just like, a little mosquito bite, a little annoyance, like nothing happened. So what is going to cut through the differences between us and them? Stay tuned.
I wonder if this is dumb. I don't know, but whatever. It's late. I'm allowed. It's no holds barred. Like, what if their technology is really powerful on our side of the galaxy, but not on theirs, right? Like maybe that's the thing that they realized could be. I mean, that's probably stupid, but I wonder if why are they coming? Or maybe their galaxy is so devastated, and that's why they're coming and mining from ours. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
It is a galaxy universe. I don't know. What is the quadrants?
I mean, there's a finite space you can travel, though, right? So, I mean, but I also think there's just a practical reason, right? Like, I wouldn't besides what we've done, you don't want to mine right next to your backyard, right? Like, I wouldn't want an oil refinery in my backyard either. So, if I'm just going to destroy stuff that's like I don't consider that important, I'll just take whatever is farthest right, so I don't notice it.
Interesting. One little stupid note that I made, which is so trivial. When they when Trina comes over as the hologram to do hologram meditations with her lover. I love that in order to make it remind us that it's a hologram, it like flickers.
Yeah.
And the whole time I was thinking like, is your tech that bad that it's flickering? But it's obviously for our use, but I still was like, come on.
I'm with you. I'm like, I know they did it for the audience, but it also, I'm like, really, we're gonna, we got this, like, we can transmit this much data where your entire body and like audio is 0 latency. And I can't get the image to stay constant for
I know.
every 15
I just kept
seconds.
being like,
I like it. I like seeing tech fail. One of my favorite things about the movie Looper is it was this near future where like the main characters don't have good cell reception all the time. And I loved that so much. One of the things that annoys me a lot about Star Trek is how the technology like never fails. So I'm super on board with that.
but I don't think the technology was failing. I think it was just so that we would remember that it's a hologram.
know.
So like, I think what you're talking about would be interesting is like what happens when it does stop working in the middle of
Which
crisis
never
or
happens.
whatever.
Which never happens.
Yeah, like the equivalent of
Like that stupid program. I love a lot of this 32nd century, wherever we are in the timeline. I love a lot of the tech. I hate the programmable matter. I hate that the warp nacelles are just like floating there and it like somehow gives them an advantage. I can't. I hate it so
love
much.
it.
You
I
with
love
Ali. I
Book's,
was like,
I love
oh,
Book's
man.
ship. I love how his ship just like spins
reconfigures?
and just what?
Just reconfigures whenever it
Yes.
wants to.
I love it.
I love
I
love
wait
his
for
ship.
that future.
I love his ship. I love that it's like a Lego. That's cool. But like, why do the warp
put his hands
nacelles?
in the dashboard and shit?
That's cool,
just,
too.
Like feel around.
That's cool. I love that. I love his view screen. It's so sexy. It's so cool.
I mean, what we're saying is we like the budget that this show has. It's exciting. It's not just iPads anymore, you know?
Yes.
All right. Well, despite this being a couple of fairly uninteresting episodes, I'm glad you could be here late at night with your martinis and dogs and cats to enjoy this with me. Okay, we're gonna do a little wrap up. So we do dumb ratings.
Yes.
You rate out of whatever you want. They could be bad tech failures. 1 out of 10 tech failures. Tell me where you came on each of these episodes or as the collective.
Okay.
Episode 8. Is that right?
Yeah.
I would say just 2 out of 7 Dragon Balls. Just nowhere near my wish. And I gotta think about episode. I liked episode 9 more. I'm gonna give that one. I'm gonna say like we're close. We're like a 5 out of 7. There's a lot of promise in there. It really depends on, I think, as Ali was saying, where we go next. There's a lot of potential in what they set up here. And of course, Star Trek has kind of gone both ways, right? Sometimes it's amazing with that potential, and other times you're like, why isn't the Year of Hell in Voyager a whole season? I still don't know.
Oh man, what? Yeah, that would have been something.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say
So and episode 9, both you rate. How many Dragon Balls does 9 get?
I said 5 out of 7 Dragon Balls on that one for me.
For both?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 2 out of 7 on the first one, and 5 out of 7 on the 2 out of 7 on Space Poker, 5 out of 7 on the attack on the DMA.
So I'm rating mine in terms of Hilton Conference Centers. So I give episode 8 the Newark Airport Hilton Conference Center. It's there. It's easy to get to, but you probably don't want to spend too many nights. There's not much to see around there. The food is questionable. Don't order the seafood. And the next episode 9, I'm gonna say it's the JFK Hilton Conference Center. Still an airport, nothing to write home about. But it's larger. The continental breakfast is just a little bit higher quality.
I can't even match that.
That's amazing.
Do you remember in one of these episodes, Detmer says something that's like a contemporary saying? It was like my grandma used to say.
Oh, needle in the haystack? Was that it?
Yeah, it was a needle in the haystack, which I thought was hilarious in the dumbest way, because you know how they always say old sayings and then they're like, and you're sitting there being like, why would you say that 900 years in the future?
Right,
so then she just adds the my great grandma used to say. You're like, what the fuck? All right. So that said, I am giving episode 8 6 out of 10 needles in a haystack.
It's a lot.
I was frustrated with but I'm like glad we got to see more of her.
You mean Joanne? Are you talking about Joanne?
I'm talking about Joanne. I'm talking about oh wow. You know? Oh wow, Joanne. Oh wow. And also I liked seeing Michael be a little goofy.
Absolutely.
And then episode 9 I'll give what did I give the other one? 6, 7? I'm gonna give this one 7.5. I don't know, whatever, who cares? 7.5 out of 100. Like, it doesn't matter. I like 9 a little bit more. It's like, whatever.
There's so much more haystack.
It's so much more haystack. I give it 700 needles in a haystack, whatever that is. It was it was a little bit better. I'm, again, also, like, I did like the season more. I am curious to see where it goes. Overall, as the season, I'm curious to see where we go with this. So, and I do like the wild safari that's happening behind BOBAK and his cats fighting.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Are they fighting?
They're just two girls. They're, just trying to establish dominance. That's all. They'll figure it out.
Sure.
They'll figure it out. Just like Michael and Book. They'll figure it out.
Just like Michael and Book.
Exactly. Like, there's only 2 options. Do they know that? You better teach them that there's only 2 options.
All problems have only 2 solutions.
Okay, y'all. Where can people find you? Do you have anything to promote? What do you wanna plug?
Oh, I got nothing to promote. I love space still. Keep looking up and
Keep looking up.
You can find me at Tweets Out Loud. I don't know. That's good, right?
Great. Tweets Out Loud.
I
can't top space as the thing to promote.
This season has been about like how we, grow emotionally and cope with so much. I feel like you're definitely topping it right now. This is your moment.
Yeah. So I am at Ali Mattu on social media. Just come talk to me about Star Trek. I have the Psych Show on YouTube where I make videos. I sometimes do. They're coming. They're not as regular, but I'm there. But I just love come talk to me about Star Trek wherever you are, and we'll have a happy day.
Like me, who was like, I specifically want the episode with him because I want to hang out with him again. I'm talk about Star Trek. So,
I guess I better keep doing this podcast.
For our sake, this is the only place where we hang out.
Just for the once a year reunion, because we couldn't do this just for fun. Nobody does this just for fun.
Right?
You don't hang out just for fun. No, it has to be for work.
If we can't turn it into content, why?
If you called me if you called me and was like, let's have a call at 9:30 p.m., I'd be like, go fuck yourself. That's never happening. All right, everyone. Bye. Thanks for tuning in.